Hello, my sweet stars, and welcome to an experimental format. A reading vlog. It's not very experimental, but it is for me, because this isn't your typical vlog. I'm not huge on trying to film my own face, and the iPhone microphone really doesn't work for me, so I'm attempting a vlog with a voiceover. We will see how it works, but consider the format in a state of evolution. Anyway, it's Friday, the 2nd of July, and I was more than ready to get started on one of my books from my July TBR. Witchcraft by Anwen Avalon was the choice. I didn't want anything too heavy, and from the synopsis it seemed like the target audience was more on the beginner end for this book, so I figured it would be a relatively light read. I was absolutely right. It is a light read, though I am not convinced that it was necessarily meant to be. I'm a little confused at this point about what the target audience is. In a lot of places, information is included that is fairly beginner level, but in others, there's some assumption of a good amount of prior knowledge. I didn't get too far tonight, so there might be an easing in period with this book, but I don't know. We'll see. So far, I don't know. We'll see. I started my Saturday after 1 p.m., and with the brief concern that I'd lost a full week, but no, apparently I just need to update my photo frame. It was also hot. Way hotter than it had any right to be in New York with window AC units, which meant I craved cold brew tea and had none. I prepped some though, using a blend I got from the Wolf and Thyme subscription box. I actually haven't tried it yet, but I figured if it was called an iced tea blend, it must be good in a cold brew. Both of my cats are clingy, and Gwendolyn was a Book of Shadows block. Loki retreated to steal my work chair while he pouted, and I gave up on any hope of using my hands in any dexterous capacity. A good excuse to read, then. About 14% of the way in, and I don't like the way this book uses folklore. I've noticed a couple times before this point that the author feels the need to prove some things to the reader. Like, it's not enough to say that someone believes something or reports experiencing something. I don't know, it's not the whole way through, but at least in a few places so far, she's talked about some piece of evidence or another proving that a belief is valid or an experience is real. I don't love that premise anyway, but then the proof she uses is fairy tales and folklore, which, look, there's nothing wrong with folklore, and I understand that that's a focus of the book, but folklore doesn't prove anything? And she seems to try to use it as a way to make folklore seem more important, too. Like, it accounts for something true and immutable, and that it proves magical accountings. I don't know, it just feels weird. Like she's speaking to a skeptic or someone disinterested or unconvinced, but then she's just doing a really bad job of trying to convince me. So I'm being put in the position of a skeptic and then not being convinced. It's dumb. I don't know. If you're not going to have good evidence, then don't address your reader like a skeptic, and they won't start thinking skeptical things when they weren't necessarily going to already. Like, she's not saying anything that I'm actively skeptical about or would have been a priori. It's just that now that she's putting it in such a light, it's making me think harder about it. So she's putting herself in a bad position. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway. Okay, and here again, I have no idea what audience we're speaking to. For a bit now, we've seemed more advanced, but now we're defining what an altar is? Who is your audience? I don't get it. I do like the description of ritual preparation as a form of moving meditation, though. I don't usually use it quite that way, but it could be a nice technique. I might try that. Gwendolyn needed to say hi, and then I need to impress upon you that I'm only 24% of the way through this book, and I already have so many annotations. To explain just a bit of how I annotate so you understand what this is showing, yellow highlights are places where I resonate with the information and am tentatively considering making a note of it in my Book of Shadows. Everything green is a comment. I won't say that all of those green comments are criticisms, but honestly, a vast majority of them are. This book is just confused. It doesn't seem to know its audience. I've said that like 5 times already, but it's true. It bears repeating. The exercises I've read so far are very specific to having access to particular types of locations or things and provides no alternative for the typical reader. The order of the information is weird. I was left asking in some places, like, are you going to explain what this is or why this is? And then I would get an answer, but only like 3 pages later. I don't know. It's not a useless book. There is good information in here. It's just everything that surrounds the good information I'm not impressed with. I gave up for the night to have dinner and make a candle. I read some fan fiction, which was better than this book, which I don't know if that says more about the book or about the quality of the fan fiction that I'm reading, but either way, it can't be complimentary. And then I decided to give it one more try for the night. So I started on a chapter where the author really gets into a lot of folklore. We've had snippets, but a lot of the information has been more introductory, like working to frame the book sort of stuff. Which, after reading this chapter, is honestly a blessing, because I might have DNF'd this book outright if the book started like this. It's good information. It is. The folklore is interesting. I like folklore. I find it fascinating and informative and really inspirational a lot of the time. Except when it's written by this author. She just makes it so dull. It's like studying for a history test. It's just like a laundry list of stories written in the shortest and blandest way possible. Like, I literally think this book was drafted as like a list, like a bullet pointed list for this section, and then they just got rid of the bullet points and stuck everything else in verbatim. That criticism feels so harsh. I feel bad. I feel mean, especially since I've already not been liking this book, but come on. Your book is supposed to be half about the folklore, and you just do it so dirty. I'm sad. This is me being sad. I don't know how I'm going to finish this book. Oh, and look, another case of trying to prove something that doesn't need to be proved. At least we have this extremely helpful reminder to not physically jump into wells. Thank you for that. You know what? Let's just look at my fail candle instead. All of its glitter sank, but it's still beautiful. Unlike this book. New dawn, new day. It's the 4th of July, and I get to drink my cold brew today. I use the same tea bag to start another jar too, because I know myself, and I will want one tomorrow. Great forethought. It was a stunning day outside, nice and cool in the morning too, so I sat my happy ass out on the balcony to try to read more of Water Witchcraft. Loki was displeased. I finally ran into a facet of this book that I actually appreciate, which is that the author doesn't take the same stance on love and light versus baneful magics that a lot of modern books do. The author has so far seemed to take inspiration from Wicca, but doesn't seem to be writing from an explicitly Wiccan perspective, which in my large but certainly not exhaustive experience does tend to lend itself to more openness in that regard. Not that all Wiccans are critical of baneful magics, not at all, just that books written from that perspective tend to be, either by only addressing the so-called light or by actively discouraging baneful magics, either way. Anyway, I can appreciate that the author isn't assuming or mandating a limited perspective on such things. And then we almost immediately ruin my happy mood by asserting that if you just keep going to a place and making offerings to the spirits and spending time there, the spirits will, not may, will, for a fact, accept you and work with you eventually. Is it just me, or is that both disrespectful and frankly dangerous as a perspective to have? Entities, be they spirits of place or deities or otherwise, have no obligation to work with you. And to assume that if you just pester them enough, they will eventually seems like a recipe for bad news. Don't harass spirits, man. If they tell you that they don't want to work with you, maybe ask if there's anything that would change their mind, and if they say no, go away. I don't know. There have been a couple of things in this book that have been a little bit dangerous just by not explaining things that seem like they would need to be explained to a beginner. But again, I can't confirm that this is technically a book that's meant to be addressed for beginners, so I can't. That's not a really strong criticism, but this is just dumb. This is just dangerous. Don't do this. Be respectful. Okay, so I'm feeling really harsh and mean and overly critical, because it seems like I'm saying nothing but negative things. And I know I've had a couple of nice things to say, but on the whole, I'm really just tearing this book apart. But the problem is that it's all legitimate. I don't feel like I'm doing it wrongly. I really am trying to give this book the benefit of the doubt the whole way through, to not get a chip on my shoulder due to the things that I've already disliked, but it's not just that I'm running into the same problem over and over again and then harping on it. It's so many different things, so I feel justified, but I just still feel bad. Anyway, the big thing that I was excited about going into this book is that the synopsis advertised exercises. And I love me some exercises. But these are disappointing. They're not bad necessarily, although there was one about entering the realm of fairy with literally no accompanying information about interacting with the fae, or do's and don'ts, or anything, really, which, theoretically, if this is a book for an advanced practitioner, that may not be necessary, but again, I'm not super convinced that it is. Regardless, the other exercises, they're not horrible, they're just obscenely repetitive. Either they're variations on the same exercise over and over again. I don't know how many times I can read basically the same process of entering a meditative state with only slightly different visualization cues without going into a meditative state and never leaving. Or they're just a cheap restatement of something the book has already said. So right here, it's the latter. The above paragraph made a recommendation about best practices, how to do something. And then the exercise is literally just a stepwise description of exactly the same thing. No variation, by and large, no additional detail. It just feels lazy. And really, that's just kind of how this book as a whole feels. It feels lazy. It's uninspired, it lacks direction, it's fairly poorly organized. I mean, that's mean, but I think it's true. So I gave up and worked on some cross-stitch. This is a piece that I started on Litha. Please ignore my clumsy attempt to show a stitch one-handed. At one point, I'm going to slide a piece of parchment behind the sun, on which I wrote my variation of calling down the sun on Litha, and then I'll be hanging this on my wall, somewhere by my altar probably. But for now, it's very much a work in progress. Okay, so it's after dinner now, and I of course had to go back out to the balcony to take in some fourth fireworks. The views left something to be desired at first, although the volume was deceptive. Really though, I just had to wait for nightfall, and then the show from the park right down the block started. Well worth it. Good morning. So I finished the book last night. There wasn't anything more to comment on. I've ranted about the bulk of it. I've said it already, but I'll reiterate. This book is not without some things that inspired me, and not without information that was useful, or that I hadn't heard before, but compared to what it could be, and to what I think it was really trying to be, it fell so far short. I was disappointed, but I have not hidden that, so let's just talk about ratings. I'll give it 4 stars for concept, because it really could have been great. The topic matter is interesting. Whether or not it succeeded in that is a little bit irrespective for the score. The idea was good, so 4 stars. 3 for nuance. There was some consideration of alternate opinions, but not of alternate circumstances or ways of living, so it really didn't do nuance in a way that was helpful, just in a way that was permissive. 2 for a reread. I might read it later on, just to see if I find more good information when I'm not so annoyed with the bad. But it's unlikely. A 1 for enjoyed. I did not enjoy it. A hard 1 for recommend. I do not recommend it. And a 2 for read other books by the author, only because her other book sounds a little bit more like she knows who she's talking to, and like it might be better organized, so I might read it. All told, it's a 43%, or a 2 out of 5 stars from me. With that done though, I am so glad to move on to the next book on my list, which is On Looking. This book confused me at first, because the only edition available actually has a new name, so instead of On Looking 11 Walks Through Expert Eyes, it's now On Looking, A Walker's Guide to the Art of Observation. But I'm confident that it's the same book, since the author has only written 2 things. I've never read her other book, which is why I was surprised to find that she's actually an animal behaviorist, specifically a dog behaviorist. I don't know, it's just an interesting perspective. Her writing style so far is very casual, conversational, and her descriptions aren't super enveloping, like I'm not sinking into the scene yet, but I'm very much only into the introduction, so hopefully that will build a bit. Regardless, I'm going a little bit stir-crazy, so right now I'm going to edit a video and then do some yoga. Hello again. Yesterday was very non-eventful. I spent most of the afternoon reading fanfiction and doing, as I call it, ceasing to exist, in between editing the video that I wanted to put up. Today was unfortunately much the same, beyond it being a work day and it storming like a mofo outside. At least that was until this evening, when I got the notification that some of my subscription boxes had arrived. First thing was some new baby succulents, just look how precious they are. A rainbow bush and a tiger jade. This is excellent, because some of my succulents were not attended to at all well while I was on vacation, so they're going to need to be retired. These young sprouts will make good replacements. More exciting though was I got the July Witch's Moon box. So I've done my best here to film one-handed while showing everything. I'm not an unboxing channel, I wanted to share the excitement with you. As a whole, I enjoy the Witch's Moon. Of the 3 witch boxes I subscribe to, the Witch's Moon tends to excite me the least, and I tend to think that it gives you the least value for the money, even though it's on the cheaper end relative to my other boxes. But it is always reliable, it has gorgeous art, good information, that sort of thing. The theme for this month was psychic protection, and this box smelt so strongly the moment I opened it. From a number of things in the box, but mainly I think from the Nagshampa incense that was included. Witch's Moon always includes some herbs, which this month were star anise, devil's claw, and peppercorn. The peppercorn seems a little eh. I'm not usually a fan of boxes giving me kitchen herbs unless kitchen witchcraft is the actual theme. I know kitchen herbs can be used for a ton of things, I just feel like I can easily get them myself. There's no reason to have a tiny plastic bag of peppercorn shipped to me from across the country. I'm also not sure about the devil's claw. According to the paper, its primary use comes from indigenous tradition, and I don't know enough about their tradition or the herb to say whether it's something I'd be comfortable incorporating into my practice. A fun new herb though. I appreciate the opportunity to learn quite a bit. The salt smelled amazing, super strongly of rosemary, but with a lot of depth behind it. And the oil had rosemary visibly in it, but didn't smell like it at all. I actually couldn't identify the smell beyond an undertone that was extremely nostalgic, though I could not figure out why. I decided while smelling it that it must be reminiscent of my mom's hairspray or perfume or something. That's typically where my nostalgic smells come from. But then reading the ingredients list, I realized that it's almond extract that I was smelling. My literal favorite thing as a kid was to go into my mom's spice cabinet while she was cooking and basically huff almond extract. Do not ask me why, but I was and am still obsessed with the smell. So I am a huge fan of this oil, although because of that association, I probably won't be using it as a psychic protection oil. It doesn't carry that association for me. The nostalgia is really going to weigh heavily on my correspondences for this. This candle, I stared at for a really long time, trying to figure out if it was supposed to be black and just was doing that thing that dyed products do when you dye them black and refusing to be a true black, or whether it was intentionally a navy blue. It was supposed to be black, but I spent so long seeing navy blue that I'm half convinced that I will be unable to use this candle as any other color, so I guess I have a navy blue candle now. Now we have the big boys of the box. First up, this absolutely stunning incense holder. It has a removable disc for ash, and the black and gold is gorgeous. The material also feels like a pretty solid quality. That can always be variable in subscription boxes, but I am pleased with this, and overall I'm just impressed with it. I have thoughts about using it in the very near future. And then this protection necklace that I do a horrible job of showing off. It's long, the end of the tassel hits a little bit below the waist when you wear it, but the string is really good quality. Not elastic, thank goodness. I cannot stand beads on elastic in almost all cases. The crystal artwork now makes sense because the paper says that the beads on this necklace are supposed to be hematite, black obsidian, and smoky quartz. Now, I'm going to say I am not fully convinced about the legitimacy of that. I've been burned by fake crystals before, okay? I think from the Witch's Moon, though I won't guarantee it. I got this quartz pendant, quote-unquote quartz, in a subscription box. I won't guarantee that it was a box from them, but I think so. And I'm 98% sure that the quartz is not even glass, but resin. That's the clear pendant you see in the video. Look out for a video actually in the future about crystal testing. This actually inspired me to figure out for certain if it's resin or just unusually textured rock. Anyway, the point is that I've been burned before. The hematite, I'm pretty sure, is actually hematite. The weight and color are at least right. The obsidian is kind of impossible to tell. It's definitely not a different stone, it's for sure glass, but whether it's volcanic glass or glass that was just dyed black, I have no way of knowing, so I'm just going to trust it. But the uniformity of the color on the quartz beads immediately had me questioning. My first thought was that it could be a radiated quartz instead of a natural smoky quartz. That could account for uniformity of color if the color is lab generated, but the sheen on the beads is very similar to the obsidian, and there were literally no imperfections within the beads. So then I was just kind of thinking that it was glass. And I actually did confirm this, unfortunately. I was very easily able to scratch one of the beads with a pyramid-shaped piece that I'm very strongly certain is real quartz. So quartz shouldn't be able to scratch other quartz, at least not easily. Maybe if you worked it quite a bit, I haven't tested it, but this was not that. Anyway, long story short, the beads are not smoky quartz. They are almost 100% glass. This isn't something that I blame the Witch's Moon for. Box curators are as easily duped by suppliers as we are, especially with things like this, and probably more so really since they're ordering wholesale. So this isn't a buyer beware moment, just a test your crystals moment. If it's important to you that they are what they say they are, and not just what they look like. With smoky quartz, frankly, the appearance is more important to me. Glass isn't crystalline, but it is the same chemical composition, roughly, to quartz, so I don't find it too problematic for my own practice, especially in the case of this necklace, where it's supported by the other crystals. But if you're concerned about such things, like I said, be on the watch for a video I'm planning about how to figure out what's what, and there are tons of them on YouTube already. After all of this investigative work, especially at the end of a dull work day, I wanted nothing more than to give myself a good reset. So I took the Nag Champa rope and the incense holder into the bathroom to set the mood for a good cleansing bath. I didn't use the salts from this box, but from a different subscription box from last month, mostly because I really wanted the floral tones that these salts offered. And then it was into the bath. Loki thought for a moment that he might like the bath very much, and then decided better of it. He has good ideas occasionally. And then, I luxuriated. Just let the day soak right off. That is all I've got for this video. I very much hope you enjoyed it. It's definitely a different style for me, but I quite liked making it. If you did, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos with me, a witch. I would love to hear down in the comments if you've read Water Witchcraft. Was I too harsh? What did you think of it? Or if you have any recommendations for books for me to read, absolutely let me know. If you've watched the whole way through, also throw a star emoji down in the comments, half for shits and giggles, and also so I can show you some love. And until next time, I hope you're reading better books than I've been, and that you're taking the time to luxuriate in your happy place, bath or otherwise. Bye!